Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of RE073, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Mender, written by HellsKitchenSink. Sir? Oh. I looked up from the bottle of honey wine. It was an excellent vintage, Debranthian, or at least it was promised that someday it would be. It'd need to age for another 50 years to reach the peak flavor. But, well, why? Wait. No, why is it Dulsbury? The stuffy little gnome straightened up. Sorry to disturb you, sir. There's someone downstairs. He is demanding to see you. I sighed. Not the Duke again, is it? I told him. He can bluster and threaten all he likes. I'm not designing something so atrocious. No. I think you should see this. I sighed and stood up. Blasted gnomes loved their surprises. I took another sip of honey wine and set it down on the table before bringing it along with me. Sobriety would be no defense against whatever I had to deal with. The first floor of the shop was unusually empty. Normally, the great and the good would be as thick as flies, attended by a journeyman. At the moment, my journeymen were passed up straight against the walls, and the only great or good seemed like he had gone from bad to worse. He was a human, and he was a barbarian. Oh, I know, barbarian, a dirty word of an elf towards a human. This isn't about how long his ancestors have been using indoor plumbing or boiling their water. He was wearing a fur pelt that almost preserved his modesty, and a great axe was strapped to his back. I suspected it had seen better days, as the edge appeared to be entirely dull. For a moment, I had to seriously question whether he wasn't an unusually well-sculpted golem. The only hint that he wasn't was a mane of black hair hanging around his shoulders, and even that was only a possibility. He turns towards me and approached. Dulsbury bustled in front of him. Can I help you? Let me down. The barbarian carefully deposited Dulsbury to one side, atop a counter, and approached me. I took an involuntary step back, forgetting I was still on the stairs, and fell on my arse. An embarrassment to elven grace everywhere. Clutching the honey wine to my chest, the great brute reached behind him, and my eyes fixed on the axe. He withdrew a small, delicate blue shirt, folded several times over. You are the best tailor, he said. It wasn't a question. Well, one doesn't like to brag, but I certainly have a flair. Oh, there it is. Oh. I looked down at the shirt and then back at him. And the best tailor in the city, possibly the world. I'm not repairing your shirt. He reached behind him again and withdrew a heavy sack and dropped it onto the floor. Diamonds spilled out onto the floor. A lot of diamonds. I'm quite wealthy, thank you, I said, my eyes on the diamonds. I wasn't that wealthy, but my liver could only take so much honey wine. Boss, whispered one of my journeymen, Tonydale, a young and somewhat impressionable wood elf from one of the more cosmopolitan forests. That's Vangor, the Unbroken. I blinked and looked up at the man. Humans were difficult to tell apart, but most weren't 7 feet tall, and most did not have a ring of tooth-shaped scars around their throat. I stood up, nonetheless, still clutching my wine. I'm not motivated by your fearsome reputation either. You know me, he said. I am Fangor. I am one of the 8. We killed the Dark Lord. My lips curled. You think I owe you for that? The Dark Lord was a human. I'm not done, he said, holding up one gigantic calloused hand. My ally, Fade. I was slow. This all was meant for me. He unfolded the shirt. A large, very obvious hole was visible in the fabric from both sides. Oh, I said, a bit weakly. I am sorry. She is alive. Our healer is quite skilled, but we cannot heal this. I held up my hands, and he placed the garment gently, reverently across my palms. I studied it, the honey wine making me sentimental. Now, suppose that I could— Not you, he pointed at the diamonds. That, he pointed at himself, to teach me. I looked at his fingers. He could probably snap my throat between 2 of them. The thought of what a brute like him would do to a garment. Young human, who was the oldest person in your tribe, or village, or horde, or whatever you have? The man looked up at the ceiling, massive fist braced to his hips. Great Orc, his hair is white. He is the oldest shaman of the mooch. He has seen nearly 500 great moons. I blinked and did the math silently in my head. He's a shade under 42? You must be kidding. Do your people not have medicine? I shook my head as Fangor stared silently. When Great Ook was born, I had been an accomplished master for 5,000 great moons. You simply do not have enough time to learn, young human. Why does it matter to you who repairs it? I can have it finished in a few days with the proper materials. That was a gift. Her parents gave it to her. The Dark Lord took them from her because I was slow. He took that from her. I've wronged her. I've wronged them. I have wronged it. He pointed towards the shirt. All things have a soul. That soul can be broken, and one who breaks it must be the one to repair it. The belt you wear, if it's damaged, what do you do to repair it? He nodded. Find a new bear, kill it, skin it, throw away the damaged one. You don't care what happens to that soul? No, the bear started it, he said with a final nod in his head. I sighed. No, there are 3 problems. First, the cloth is Argian jute. The method for actually making it is lost, and is quite valuable. Finding a sample for a proper patch will be expensive. You might find a few small garments in the treasure vaults of some of the richer kings. Second, dye. You see this blue? Oh, yes, he said, after several seconds of hesitation and careful study. This is made from the shells of a certain very long-lived, very hostile mollusk. Humans call it the... I sighed, ship buggerer. The small, manageable specimens are very possibly entirely extinct. You would have to confront one of the old bulls. They are sexually attracted to ships sailing off the wrecker coast. It's called that because they wreck ships they're attracted to. Lastly, you would need to learn how to patch. I could not even let you make the attempt until you were a master in your own right. The barbarian grabbed his chin and nodded. He spat in his hand and held it out. I stared in fascinated horror at it until he put it away, wiping on his pelt. Very well, I'll come back with the jute and shell. We'll begin chaining. Rather clever, said Dulsbury, as the shop was once again ours. The wild goose chase. No chance he's finding those. Yes, I said, somewhat distracted, looking down at the shirt. A week later, he returned carrying a robe of Argian jute and a king's ransom in shipbuggerer shells. Gods, sod the diamonds, murmured Dulsbury, holding his nose as he stared at the shell. I sat, a nearly empty honey wine bottle in front of me, staring down at the robe. Never thought I'd actually get to touch it. I brushed my fingers across the stitching. Might even be able to reverse engineer the secret to making it. Only one problem now, Fangor said. I looked down at his hands. Well, at the very least it deserves the attempt. I'll show you how to mend, how to patch. I may take some time to master, but when I judge you ready... A month later, I sat sitting back, the bottle of honey wine on my lap, as I watched him sew. Fine, precise movements. The minimum thread necessary, the color of both thread and patch matching perfectly with the shirt, even down to the fading. The needle rising and falling with delicate precision. When he finished, he held up the shirt to me. The patch was very nearly invisible. And of course, it will still be there. A patch, much like a scar, can never fit perfectly with the rest of the shirt, I said. But you've done an incredible job. A scar is not broken, said Fangor, nodding with satisfaction, a finger brushing across his neck. It'll make Fade smile. Thank you. He looked at me, and then over at the dressing dolls. The Duke's slippery lay half-finished. Does making bring you happiness? It used to, I said, and took a sip of honey wine. This is a small thing, he nodded at the patch, but it made me happy to learn. He looked at me once again, his arms crossed. What more can you teach me? I blinked. Well, everything, if you have the time. I have no Dark Lords to kill right now. He stood up and nodded. I will be back. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 peeps. Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Bushmaster 177, Henry the Red, Caspar Arnholtz, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Elijah Silvercross, Dragzoon WRE, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.